Well, good morning, Smithfield. I'm Chris. I'm one of Joe's friends from Virginia Beach, and I'm excited to be out here to lead you guys in worship. You guys are welcome to stand with me and sing along if you like. Clap your hands, and let's worship together. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain moved. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. Oh, there's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. When I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Oh Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. You guys can have a seat.
Our Father, who art in heaven, today we remember those men and women who have died in service to our country. We pause to reflect on the lives sacrificed while protecting our freedoms. We confess that most days we are oblivious to the price paid by men and women in uniform, and yet we live every day in the freedom they laid down their lives to give us. So today, we recall the words of Jesus when he said, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." And let us not forget that each life lost represents other lives that are left to pick up the pieces. We lift up widows and widowers, brothers and sisters, parents and children of the servicemen and women who fought valiantly for our country. We ask for your peace and comfort to never leave them. God, we thank you for the lives of these men and women. May their memory and their service never be forgotten. Amen.
Hey SCC family, Joe here. Obviously, I'm not with you this morning. I'm a little south of you guys. Down in Orlando, we are at Disney World for a few days. But I wanted to drop in real quick and just say good morning, say hey, praying for a great morning for you guys. I got a great slate of friends set up for you today. Obviously, the fellow leading worship is not our typical group. My good friend Chris Conley is there leading you guys in worship this morning. And also my friend John Maurice, the president of Mid-Atlantic Christian University, is going to be preaching in a little while. So hope you guys have an awesome day, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Smithfield Christian Church, Smithfield family, SCC family, as Joe likes to say. You guys are family. Wow. Not much for announcements today. If you are new here, hello, welcome. There's if you want to get to know more about the church, there's cards in the pockets of the seats that you can sign and fill out and turn those in the offering plate. And to everyone else, because the room's a little light, so I'm assuming everyone's online right now. And hello to you all. If you're new here, there's a tab that you can click and get to know more about the church as well. I think the biggest announcement is the Summer Blast is kicking off. Registration is now open. You can go to the Smithfield Christian website and fill out the information that you need there, and registration is going to be going on for a little bit. Other than that, please, if you feel like giving, there's multiple ways you can do that. Through in-person, online, phone. For in-person, we ask that you leave it in the offering plates that are in the back. I'm going to pray for it, and we'll get the show going again. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful day that you've given us. It's raining, but, this week was pretty hot, so we needed it. Just thank you for all the improvements that you've allowed us to be able to afford and turn this church into something even more beautiful as the time's going on and the church grows stronger. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Man, well, we'll let Joe hang out in Disney, but we're going to hang out together this morning. So, again, you guys are invited to stand and sing. We're going to sing a couple songs together. And I search the world, and it couldn't fill me. A man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. And you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all. still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Let's sing that again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. And he is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how he loves us so. Oh, how he loves us. How he loves us so. Yeah, he is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane. I am a tree bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are and how great your affections are for me. And oh, how loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. And we are his portion, and he is our prize. Drawn to redemption by the grace in his eyes. If grace is an ocean, we're all sinking. And heaven meets earth like an unforeseen kiss. My heart turns violently inside of my chest. And I don't have time to maintain these regrets when I think about the way that he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. Yeah, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. You guys can have a seat.
How about that? Welcome everybody here present. There's a few missing, some traveling, some perhaps because of the weather. All you that are watching us online, welcome. You are part of the family, and we appreciate you. We're grateful for the guests we have today to bring God's word to us, to enlighten us, and I'm sure he will. He comes from a great place. Had a chance to talk with him earlier, and so we're very grateful to have him. Now, this is a very special weekend. I'm not comfortable saying Happy Memorial Day. That's a personal thing with me, but it's a blessed Memorial Day. And all those that gave their lives so that we could have the freedom to be here and do what we do, it's a time to honor them and give thanks to them and their families, and there's many. And so that's what I'm going to try to do this morning. This weekend we have the privilege to honor the men and women that have sacrificed their lives in many different ways to ensure that we, the citizens of the United States of America, can live free and enjoy prosperity, and most important, to worship the Lord our God as we choose. How important is that? Very important. You're right, Barbara. A lot of places in the world, even now, a lot of places in this country, people are having those freedoms jeopardized, and it's sad. Around the world, people are still getting killed for things that they're doing to worship and share God's word. There's a few sayings that I came up with. Thank God I learned how to use a computer a little bit. But is one, this nation will remain the land of the free only so long as it is the home of the brave. Very true. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. That was Martin Luther King. The only way you can serve God is by serving other people. Rick Warren. Now, here are the words of our Lord. This is something we can live by and prosper with all the time. Especially to me, a few weeks ago, I held up a little Bible that I had carried with me around the world. It survived the fire that burned my house down. This was my dad's Bible, which has been hiding. It was given to him by a church in Appalachia in 1945. Just turned up this week. And I know he's read every word in here many times. He died in 68, but I know he read this over and over. It's got gold letters with his name on the front, and I cherish it. That's a memory that I love. We have had, as Christians, 2,000 years of Memorial Days to honor our Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus' life was to serve mankind and to show us the way to live, that we could have eternal life with him. His message lives on, and we can daily grow in strength and faith by doing his will. One very special way that we do that every week here is through our communion. And communion is our way to show that we honor and remember Christ for his selfless life and sacrifice on the cross for our salvation. Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, let this communion day have a special meaning, that we are close to you, and more importantly, you are with us at all times in all that we do. Whatever we do, if we ask, you forgive us and give us that wonderful, impossible potential for your grace and your forgiveness and the opportunity to spend eternity with you. Thank you for all your blessings. Amen. All right, I hope everybody had time to partake of the communion and give thanks. There weren't any written messages back there this morning, but I know each and every one of us has a prayer in our heart for somebody or something. So I'll just openly say, since I was asked to, that I hope Joe and his family have a good, safe vacation and safely return home, or I'm going to put his house on the market. And Jim up in Pennsylvania, we hope he enjoys his golf game. I think he's doing some golf. But and has a safe trip back there, back to here. We all need time to get away. Some of us don't take enough. But if we can sit in quiet, and I find plenty of time to do that at home now, and I'm grateful for that, to just open up your heart and let His grace and mercy be felt and appreciated and loved. And it's there for all of us. We just have to do it. So for all the unspoken prayers on all of our hearts, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you and ask for your mercy and your grace. Be with all those that have needs through health or financially or spiritual. We know you're there, and we can count on you to pull us through the worst of times. And may we always appreciate you and give thanks to you for the best of times. In your name we pray. Amen.
I think I'm turned on. Okay, I am. Well, it's great to be here with you at Smithfield Christian Church again. It's been about 3 years since I was here before, and a lot has happened in 3 years. A lot has happened with me. I'm sure a lot has happened with you and in your life, but it's a joy to be here with you this morning and to reconnect today. Thank goodness we've all made it through our COVID year. It has not been a fun experience, I don't believe, for any of us, and hopefully we are none the worse for the wear. I wanted to give a little presentation this morning about Mid-Atlantic Christian University. It's easy to come in and preach, and I enjoy preaching, but part of my responsibility as the president of Mid-Atlantic is to represent the college wherever I go. And normally people see the president and they say, well, he's here after our money. I am. Just let's get that out of the way. We always need money. This year we will end in the black. This will be 2 years in a row that we've ended the year in the black. I've told the trustees that they entrust me to lead the university, and I will do everything that I can to make sure that we are fiscally responsible with every dime that comes before us. So this will be our second year ending in the black. Our year ends June 30th. But it doesn't mean that we have all the money that we need, because if you're aware, not only did we have COVID this past year, on September 5th, Labor Day weekend last year, we lost our classroom building and our cafeteria. We were re-roofing the building. The building was completed in 1968, and so we were having to re-roof the building, and what happened was the people placing the shingles on the roof placed too many shingles in a short span, and when the men started shoveling shingles off of the roof, the structural integrity gave way. And you remember that building used to, in the upstairs of the middle section, was wide open. There were no interior walls because it had initially been a chapel for the college. And so the walls were really not load-bearing that were up there, and so the structural integrity of the building did not work. Insurance will pay part of the rebuild, but we're needing to build a larger building on the same footprint. We will tear down the rest of the building beginning June 7th, And then the architects are working on a new design for a new 2-story building. This will be a new cafeteria that will be built at the other end of the block. It's about 7,000 square feet, and the cost of this will be $1.2 million. And that's a bargain. I met with the presidents from College of the Albemarle and East Elizabeth City State University. They said, what in the world can you get built for $1.2 million? I said, you can't get anything built for $1.2 million because you have to go through the government bidding process, but we don't. And so we're working with Church Development Services out of Virginia Beach, and everywhere they can look to save you money, they do, and instead of them pocketing that money, they return the money to the university. So this is going to be something fabulous to have on our campus. You can see that the outside will be a place for dining as well as inside, and it will seat inside the cafeteria 250, so we'll be able to expand and grow the university. And then the new classroom building will have all of the classrooms that we need, not just for today, but for the future. So right now, we're kind of in a predicament because when a potential student comes to look at our campus for a student visit, they see one building that's torn down, they see one building that we burned down, and there's sand on the parking lot. And so we're putting some signs up that have pictures of the new cafeteria on it. And as soon as we have an architect's rendering, we'll have that on the other end of the block. But, you know, when students come, they really must want to come there for the education. They're not coming because of the facilities. But what we are doing this summer is, anybody here a builder? Anybody do brickwork? And one of the interesting things about our campus is every building on our campus was built with a different brick. There are no two bricks alike on our campus with the building. And so the 2 dormitories on the riverfront, we're painting, and they're going to be a nice color that will match, and then we'll leave the middle building the brick that it is, and then the 2 new buildings on the opposite side of the street will have matching brick. So we're finally going to get our campus where it's looking more like a college campus than it ever has before. I have no idea where we are in the slides, but if you can move it. Okay. That's the Rise Up campaign. The Rise Up campaign is we're needing to raise $1.5 million. The good news is we have $962,000 pledged or already received towards that $1.5 million. God's people have stepped up, and so we need people that will donate $100,000. We need people that donate $50,000, $25,000, $10,000, and we're going all the way down to $250 over 3 years, which is $7 a month. So there's a place for everybody. You can't even buy 2 Starbucks coffees for $7.50. So there are some forms and papers out in the foyer of the church. Would love if you would pick those up. We'd love for the church to partner with us again. No matter what you study, and we have 32 different fields of study at Mid-Atlantic Christian University. When I went, we had 2 different degrees. You could get a Bachelor of Arts in Christian Ministry, or you could get a Bachelor of Science in Christian Education. And the only difference was whether or not you took languages. Here we are 45 years later, and we have 32 different areas of study. Linguistics, elementary education. We have one of the best elementary education programs in the state of North Carolina. Bible and theology, biology. We're starting a new biology program this coming year in environmental biology. Ours is a pre-professional degree for those who are interested in going into medical work. We have biopsychology, which is a biology and psychology program. And I was 2 years ago, I had a stroke. And when I was in the hospital, one of the people that was working with the neurologist office had a degree in biopsychology. First time I had ever heard of it. And then said, now we're offering the degree in it. We have business administration with about 7 different concentrations. Counseling, this is what Chris does. He's received one of our counseling degrees, and is a counselor, licensed counselor here in the state of Virginia. Cross-cultural ministry, you can read all of those, but we have a lot of different programs available for students to come and to study. All right, next slide, please. Last year, we brought back a preaching minor concentration. We added biopsychology, and we added a human resource management in our business administration program. Next slide, please. This year, we're offering esports and gaming. Did you realize esports is over $1 billion business in America, esports and gaming? So we're offering that. Supply chain management. One of the economic development facilitators in Elizabeth City I met with, and I said, what would be a good program for us to help our community? He said supply chain management. We're coming through with Highway 87. We need to move goods from the Port of Norfolk to Raleigh. And so looked into supply chain management. We're offering that this year. Professional sales. We have 9 students who've enrolled for next year who want to major or get a concentration in professional sales, and then our environmental science concentration in biology. Next slide, please. Whatever field a person goes into, we believe, as did Martin Luther, that is ministry. Where God calls you is your place of service for the kingdom of God. And sometimes I'll go into a large church and they might have 5 or 6 people on their staff, and they'll ask the question, well, how many ministers are you training? And I say, all of them. They're all ministers. And what they're asking is how many are preaching? And I want to say, you have a church of 2,000 people. How many people do you have here that preach? 1. You have 1. So really, if we're going to influence the world with the gospel, it's going to be as you and your children and grandchildren and families are out impacting the world. And yes, we want those who stand behind the pulpit and preach and who go to foreign lands and preach, but we want people standing in hospital rooms, caring for patients. We want them in nursing homes. We want them in business. We want them in education, so that the gospel is proclaimed and lived out every day, and people see Jesus living inside of us. Martin Luther talked about our vocation being a calling from God, and I hope that all of us look at that. If you're in the Navy or the Army or the Marine Corps, you are there serving the Lord. If you're a mechanic at a gas station, you're there serving the Lord. Next slide, please. We have athletics. This year, our basketball team won the national championship. Go Mustangs. The big joke, I'm a Duke fan. Most people on campus are Carolina fans. But I said, we can all be Mustang fans. So we have compromised on that. We have a co-ed soccer team. And this year, our baseball team, which we're only in our 2nd year, the first year was wiped out by COVID. So the oldest person on our baseball team is a sophomore. So we have a young team. We went to the Baseball World Series for the first time this year. And though we lost both games, it was a coup d'etat to be able to go and to play. We were playing up at Penn State. So it was a great opportunity. We have golf, women's volleyball, and then we have a lot of club sports, tennis, cross country, esports, rowing. Next slide, please. Cost to attend. That's what every parent wants to know. What's it cost to go to college? It's expensive. The only thing more expensive than going to college is not going to college. The average college graduate will make about $1 million more in their lifetime than the person who graduates from high school and never goes to college. But very few students pay the $31,040. That's everything. That's room, board, tuition, fees, everything. 95% of our students receive financial aid. We have many first-generation students that come to MACU. And so we push scholarships and grants instead of student loans. This year, I always do graduate interviews, and 7 of our 29 graduates this year graduated debt-free, which was amazing. The average person graduates from college today owing $29,000. I did have one student graduating with $70,000 worth of debt, but he's married. He lived on that money for 4 years, so that's a little bit different thing. But the average person will pay about $16,000 to $20,000 to come to Mid-Atlantic. We have a university in our community that has North Carolina Promise, and you can benefit from North Carolina Promise if you live in Hampton Roads, and they say you can attend Elizabeth City State University for $500 a semester. And that's true, tuition-wise. But once you live on campus, you eat in the cafeteria, and your fees are paid, you're paying over $18,000. We've had 2 students who left us to go over there. Both of them said, I wish we would have stayed, because they found that it cost them more money to go to participate in North Carolina Promise than it did to stay at Mid-Atlantic with the grants and the scholarships that we were awarding them. Next slide, please. See the beautiful campus? Again, no 2 bricks are alike on that side of the road. The middle building will remain the brick. The other 2 buildings will be painted on both sides of that. But it's the most beautiful place in Elizabeth City, right on the Pasquotank River. And I hope that you'll come and visit the campus. We're having Seniors by the Sea, if you're 55 and older, on Tuesday, June the 8th. Tell Joe when he gets back from Disney that MACU is the greatest place known to man other than Disney World. Okay, so tell him to come and bring a group of folks. We'll feed you. You'll have a program. It's going to be a great program. That afternoon, we're taking people over to the Museum of the Albemarle, where we have an archaeological exhibit in the museum. And one of the people on the archaeological digs is going to take small groups through the exhibit. So you'll get firsthand opportunity to see what's going on and being done at Shiloh. So that's all I got for that. Any questions about MACU? Okay, some of you remember when it was Roanoke Bible College. I graduated from there in 1978. It was RBC. Chris, you probably graduated when it was. Okay, right before the name change. Okay. And didn't you come to Naval Station with a group that Clay brought one Sunday? No? Okay. All right. One of the things, while I was in the Navy, every place that I served where we had a religious offering fund, we supported Mid-Atlantic Christian University. I have always said wherever a minister is who's serving a local church, I believe that church has a responsibility to help support the educational institution that provided that minister. And so where I was and my education from RBC at the time, we always supported Roanoke Bible College through the Religious Offering Fund. And I will always continue that. I think our churches owe a great debt to professors who have sacrificed a lifetime of service to educate people to serve the body of Christ. Professor Ronnie Woolard will conclude 50 years of service next year. My secretary, Melissa Lewis, and her husband, Pop, will complete 50 years of service to MACU next year. They're all underpaid. They're all underpaid. But they love what they do. They look at it as a calling from God. And so one of the things that is so important to me is that we can support them. For the first time, and they don't even know it yet, for the first time in at least 10 years, I'm giving everybody an across-the-board pay increase this year. And you know, it's not much, but it beats nothing. And that doesn't mean I don't do things when we have money, like give Christmas bonuses and things like that. But you know, when you're working on razor-thin margins, you just don't have the opportunity to put in your budget, you know, $30,000 pay increase that will go into perpetuity. And so it's easier to give a bonus or something like that. But I so appreciate the men and women who serve at Mid-Atlantic, and I thank Smithfield for your support of MACU. You are a part of one of the 300 churches that supports the work of Mid-Atlantic Christian University, and so I thank you for being a partner with us. And this time I think there's going to be a video, and then we're going to go into the sermon. Am I right? This morning, I wanted to speak on a passage of Scripture that's familiar, I believe, to all of us. It's from Hebrews chapter 12, and it's only 3 short verses. But if you would, turn with me to Hebrews chapter 12, and we'll begin reading with verse 1, and we'll read through verse 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Any runners out here, or former runners? You got that 26.2 mile thing on the back of your car, 13.1, 10K, 5K. I saw a car not long ago that had a 0.0 sticker on the back. I said, that's me. That's about what I'm running these days, 0.0. But yet all of us who have proclaimed faith in Jesus Christ are runners. We're running in a marathon. It doesn't stop as long as we're alive. The race ends when we go to be with the Lord. In 1983, 150 world-class runners converged on Sydney, Australia for a grueling 543.7-mile endurance race from Sydney to Melbourne, Australia. On the day of the race, a 61-year-old potato farmer and sheep herder by the name of Cliff Young approached the registration table wearing overalls with galoshes over his work boots. You can only imagine what the runners thought when they looked and they saw this guy. You know, they looked at him and they thought, man, what in the world is he even here for? You know, he's not going to finish the race. What is this guy doing? But he did go to the registration table. He registered. They gave him bib number 64, which he put on his shirt and he wore as he ran that race. Now, Cliff was not a runner, at least in the marathon sense that these world-class runners were all about. In fact, his job was rounding up sheep on a 2,000-acre farm, and when there would be a storm that would be rolling through, his job was to go and round up about 2,000 sheep and get them back to a place of safety. And so sometimes it would take him 2 or 3 days to go out and get all of the sheep and to bring them back to a place of safety. Well, they're milling around. The race is getting ready to start. People are mocking Cliff Young. They said, we'll never see this guy again. He's going to be toast. And the gun sounded, and the bystanders watched as this 61-year-old guy by the name of Cliff Young kind of shuffled off, different than what a runner really looks like. And you can Google this. Google the Cliff Young shuffle. And you can kind of get an idea about what he looked like as he started out. People thought they had seen the last of Cliff Young because every runner left him pretty much in their dust. But 5 days, 15 hours, and 4 minutes later, Cliff Young finished that race. And he won it. He didn't win by just a few minutes. He won by almost 10 hours. 9 hours and 56 minutes. You see, the real runners knew that when you're running this ultramarathon, you run for 12 hours and you rest for 12 hours. Cliff didn't know what he didn't know. All he knew was he was running this race and he was going to finish the race. And so he kept going day in, day out, day in, day out until he went across the finish line, winning by almost 10 hours. Australians were stunned that this guy could come out of the dark and win this race, having never been a real runner. I hope that you and I have a little bit of Cliff Young in us. We may not be running every day and out there breaking speeds, but we're in a race for eternity. We are following Jesus as he has run the race before us, and he stands cheering us on in our great cloud of witnesses. You see, if we're going to be victorious in the Christian life, we have to endure our living until Jesus comes or we go to be with Jesus. We have to endure in this race. It's all about endurance and perseverance. Keeping on when you get tired and you want to give up. I would imagine this past year has been difficult on a lot of us. And many of us have said, what's the use? Why don't we just give up? We're almost like Job. When Job was discouraged and was going through all of the bad things in life, and people would come along and say, why don't you just curse God and die? And Job's final response was, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, but blessed be the name of the Lord. And we may have gotten to that point of being discouraged in our life this past year. We couldn't come to church. We couldn't have fellowship together. We couldn't have our Bible studies and prayer times. We couldn't go visit grandchildren. It's been a difficult year. And then all of the other things of life that normally step in. We could have become very, very discouraged and just wanted to give up. But I think just like Cliff Young, when we turn to this passage of Scripture, we see the power of perseverance, of keeping on. As we break open the book of Hebrews, we discover that something had happened to dull the Christians' zeal and fervor for the Lord. They had remembered the words of Jesus who said, behold, I come quickly. And now that the church was being persecuted, they were beginning to say, Lord, where's the promise of your coming? You said you were going to return quickly, and now things are getting hard, and it's not all rosy to follow you. It was getting difficult. You mentioned in your meditation this morning how, we at times feel like there's an anti-Christian component coming against the church today or coming against any sort of righteousness. It would be easy to get discouraged. But we cannot become discouraged. We have to persevere until the finish line. So how can we be renewed? How can we be re-energized in our Christian faith so that we will run and not grow weary? How can we persevere until the end? I've got just a couple of points for the sermon this morning, but first, look around and see that you are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. That phrase has always been in Hebrews chapter 12, but it really came to light to me when I was serving with the Marine Corps at Headquarters Marine Corps, and we were doing a training on post-traumatic stress disorder. And the psychologist who was doing the training pointed out that passage of Scripture for dealing with soldiers and sailors and Marines who were suffering from PTSD. He said, one of the things that you try to instill in them is that they are not alone. They are following in the footsteps of those Marines who have laid it all on the line before. And I think that is such a good thing for us to remember. We have a great cloud of witnesses who's cheering us on in the Christian race. We have two, I believe, inner witnesses to this great cloud of witnesses. One was when we became a Christian and we were baptized. I learned from my Catholic friends, remember your baptism. Remember your baptism. And isn't that what Romans 6 is all about? Romans 6 says, don't you know that as many of you as have been baptized into Christ have died with Christ and have been raised to walk in newness of life? That's a witness to our faith. You made a commitment to follow Jesus. Don't turn aside. Don't turn away. And then the second witness that we observed this morning was the Lord's Supper, where we hold in our hand a piece of bread and we hold in our hand a cup that has the fruit of the vine. And as we take that bread, we remember the words of Jesus who said, I am the bread of life. Whoever eats this bread will never die. Isn't that a great testimony to our faith? And how about when we hold in our hands that cup of remembrance, This is my blood of the New Testament, shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you do eat this bread and drink this cup, you do proclaim the Lord's death until he comes again. They are two great things that we have in our bag to remember that we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and these are inner witnesses to us. But in Hebrews chapter 11, he also paints a huge picture and lists a great number of people who remained faithful to God when things got difficult. And I'd just like to look at a couple of these. You know, sometimes we think that we have sinned so greatly that God could not love us. And if you ever are in a position or predicament where you think God could not love me because my sins are too great, my sins are too many, remember David, because David is listed in the great hall of faith. David, when he was king, looked out and he saw Bathsheba bathing on the roof. He knew that her husband Uriah was off at war. He sent for her. They had relations. She became pregnant with a child. He sent for Uriah, brought Uriah back, and basically when Uriah would not go home and sleep with his wife, he sent him back into the battle with a note to give to Joab that basically said, when the fighting is at its fiercest, you withdraw and pull back, knowing that Uriah would be killed in the battle. And yet, God forgave David of his sin. And he says that, and we remember David as a man after God's own heart. So if you ever think that your sin is too great for God to deal with and to forgive, remember David. Because if he can forgive David, he can forgive you, and he can forgive me of anything. I mentioned Job a few minutes ago. Job was getting bad advice. He lost it all in one day. He lost all of his children. He lost all of his wealth. He didn't lose his wife. But she was there trying to help him, at least from her perspective. And she just finally said, why don't you curse God and die? His friends came along, why don't you curse God and die? And Job said, no. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So if you think you've suffered a lot in this world, you probably haven't lost it all in one day. And the beautiful thing is, because Job kept his faithfulness, what happened in the end? God restored everything double unto him that he had, except for the children. And I wonder why he didn't. I believe, personally, that it's because in the resurrection, his children will be there. And so he was restored, the family that he lost, but the family that he lost, he would regain in heaven. And I think that is a decent rendering of that passage of Scripture. You ever feel like you don't have enough faith? You know, how much faith does it take to follow Jesus? Jesus said, if you have enough as a small mustard seed, it's enough. It's enough. And sometimes we think we have to know the whole Bible, frontwards, backwards, inside out, and then we still wonder, do we have enough? It isn't knowledge, it's faith. It's faith in the living God. Because our God owns it all, He knows it all, He sees it all, He is in control of all. So if you think, I don't have enough faith, remember Abraham. Abraham, when he was 90 years old, and God comes and says, your wife is going to have a son, and what did they do? They laughed. They didn't see how that was going to happen, but God made it happen. And then he mentioned John the Baptist, Stephen, who was hated and stoned only because he was a Christian. And he says, all of these finished the race. They finished the race. And I hope that when the day is done and we stand before God, that what we'll hear is they finished the race. They finished the race. Now, there are other people who are cheering us on in our great cloud of witnesses. My dad is in my great cloud of witnesses, John Maurice Sr. My dad was a devout Christian man. He served as a Sunday school teacher for the boys' class in our church, teenage boys. He worked at a paper mill. He taught me the value of hard work. He taught me to be honest. He taught me to be an ethical person. He was also a man of deep faith. And when I said, Dad, I believe God is calling me into the ministry, my dad encouraged that. And I ended up going to school and becoming a minister. Whether or not I was a good one or not will remain to be seen. But he is in my great cloud of witnesses. And there have been times when I wanted to give up. And by the way, ministers this past year have paid an enormous price of feeling down and depressed and hurt through this pandemic, not being able to minister how they feel God has called them. And there are many who are looking at leaving ministry. So please continue to encourage Joe and his family in their work here, because it has not been an easy year for those involved in ministry. But when I felt like giving up and dropping out of ministry, I could just look up. My dad died in 2000, and I could just envision my dad clapping and cheering me on. Don't give up, son. Keep on going. You can do it. You can make it. My wife and I lost a 3-year-old son in 1987. His name was Matthew. And there have been times that, I felt like the world was going to end. You're not supposed to bury your children. In fact, one great Chinese blessing is grandfather dies, father dies, son dies. Well, why is that a blessing? Because that's the order in which they die. You're not supposed to bury your children. And the most difficult death I've ever had to experience in this life is the death of a beautiful 3-year-old, blonde-headed little boy with blue eyes named Matthew Maurice. The night that he died, he and I were sitting at the piano, and I was kind of playing the tune, and he was singing along with me. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And when I wanted to drop out of the race, I remember Matt, and I can see him in heaven standing and cheering me on in this race. When I was 9 years old, in our church, in First Christian Church in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, Donald E. Boyer, great big old guy, preached a sermon, and I walked forward that night and gave my life to Jesus Christ. I made a profession of faith that I believed Jesus died for me and rose again, and that I wanted to live and to serve him. And I remember putting my little bitty 9-year-old hand in his great big hand and him baptizing me that night in the baptistry of First Christian Church. Don has gone on to be with the Lord many years ago, but he is a part of my great cloud of witnesses. And you have a lot of people in your great cloud of witnesses, parents and grandparents, brothers and sisters, friends who have helped encourage you and to give you the good news and to encourage you in times of difficulty. And perhaps you could name other witnesses who've been a part of your life, and you witnessed how they ran, and you said, I'm going to keep going because it's all worth it. From 1994 to 1997, I was the chaplain at the basic school in Quantico. Any Marines out there this morning? Okay, no Marines? Your son's a Marine? Okay, still a Marine?
Well, no, he went on to state trooper.
Okay, all right.
But he was there for 4 years.
Okay. The one thing that every Marine officer hates is the basic school, and I love the way that the Marines call it the basic school because you've got to keep everything simple. But it's the only school like it in the world, and every newly commissioned second lieutenant has to go to TBS for 6 months of training, because you've always heard the phrase, every Marine and infantryman first. Every Marine is a rifleman. And so if you have an air contract, or if you're an attorney, or whatever your MOS is going to be, you still go to the basic school, because they want you to know if you're flying a Harrier or if you're flying a Cobra and you're called in for close air support, because that's all the Marines do is close air support. You know what it's like to be that grunt on the ground who's calling it in, and how essential what you're doing matters to that Marine on the ground. And so they go there and they camp out in the woods for probably 4 out of the 6 months, and they do marches and everything else to get there. But one of the things at TBS that they always do when they first show up from OCS, and they get there from OCS and they're all tough as nails. You can take a quarter and flick it off of their chest and the quarter will just, disintegrate. If you don't believe me, ask one of them. They'll tell you. But they do an initial PRT. Now, I'm retired Navy. The PRT that the Marine Corps does and the PFA that the Navy does are two different animals. Our run is 1.5 miles, and that's way longer than any ship that we have, so it's okay. But they have to run 3 miles. They have to do push-ups, sit-ups, and chin-ups. So I went out because I said, I need to go out and be with the Marines. That's my job, is to be with the Marines. I went out for their initial PRT. Again, they just got out of OCS. They're 22 years old. I'm 40. They're Marines. I'm Navy. I'm old. I'm out of shape, but I go out because I'm going to be with them. And I finagle my way up to the front of the line before we start the run because I know that I need to be as close as possible because they won't start the clock until the last person crosses that line. So I'm up there, they blow a whistle, and I'm off. And I'm passed by 250 Marines. And I'm going as fast as I can, which is not very fast. And I'm seeing them get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then the next thing I know, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger because they've already made it 1.5 miles down the road. They've turned around. They're coming back towards me. So I'm huffing and puffing, and I get to the end, and I turn around, and I start coming back. Some of those guys ran that 3 miles in about 16 minutes. They were moving pretty good. But not all of them. And as I got nearer to the end of that 3-mile run, I would see people who had already finished turning around, coming back out, and running next to Marines as they were finishing the race. And what they were doing was they were encouraging those Marines, you can do it, push it out, give it all you've got, do it. And then they would get to the finish line again, they would turn around and they would come back. And I want you to know it was one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life when about a dozen Marines turned around, came back to where I was, and they ran next to me saying, come on, chaps, you can do it, you've got it, give it all you've got. And I crossed that finish line in 22 minutes and 16 seconds, the best I had ever run 3 miles in my life. And what I did was I just kept right on walking over to my office. I got on my office floor and just laid down and said, somebody call the corpsman. Somebody help me here. But one of the things they knew was nobody runs the race alone. And we have people, and I want to instill in us all this morning, one of the beautiful things about being a part of a church, a body of Christ, is you don't run alone. When you need prayer, you have people in this body who are cheering you on, who are praying with you, who are saying, we're here to support you. If you're in the hospital, somebody from this church is going to come alongside you, and they're going to come visit you, and they're going to hold your hand while you're waiting to go into surgery. There's opportunities for people to influence your faith and for you to influence others. And so I hope that you realize you do not run this race alone. Second, we need to throw off everything that hinders us. Most of us don't run with coveralls and boots on. Most people run with a pair of shorts, a sweatshirt, and a pair of sneakers on. What's hindering you in your Christian journey? What's making you run slower than you ought to be running? In over 40 years of ministry, I think what trips most of us up are the things we think that nobody else knows. It's the secrets that we know in our heart, that we think nobody else knows those, but inside they're destroying us and killing us. All of us are going to face temptation. All of us face trials. James says that. But what are the weights that are slowing us down? He says, if you want to run, you've got to throw off these weights that are holding you back if you want to finish the race. What are the sins that are tangling you up and making you trip? Pride, more stuff, promotion, self, addiction, I mean, there's a million things that can get in there and take the place of our Savior. And third, run with perseverance. Run with perseverance. That means I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep on going until the end. I want to read something, and if you want a copy of it when we're done, it's by Portia Nelson, called "There's a Hole in My Sidewalk." I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I love it. Chapter 1, it's in 5 chapters, autobiography in five short chapters. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I fall in. It's a habit. But my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down another street. So that's some pretty wise counsel for us, because the hole in the sidewalk is a metaphor of life. To see our habits and know that we need to make a change. And sometimes it's hard to do, and sometimes we fall in over and over and over. But hopefully we'll get to the point that we walk around or we go down a different street. And then if we're going to run this race with perseverance and win, we have to fix our eyes on Jesus. You know, there are so many distractions today. I left my phone in the car because I've been preaching some Sunday mornings, and, you know, people will call me, they'll text me, that thing, you know, it will be in my pocket and just feel like I'm going to get shocked. There are distractions all around us. Most of us can't sit in silence or stillness. And you know, I think it's so important that he says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Where are our eyes focusing? And are we easily distracted from where our eyes ought to be focused? You see, if we're going to run this life of faith, we must resist the distractions and look deeply into his eyes. He says, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that lay before him endured a cross and despised the shame. He has sat down at the right hand of the God's throne. Consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, so that you won't grow weary and lose heart. So I believe that we can run this race. We can be victorious, but we have to keep our eyes on Jesus. On August 7th, 1954, the British and Commonwealth Games were held in Vancouver, British Columbia. England's Roger Bannister and Australian John Landy met for what was to be called the mile of the century. And you realize that these two men had broken the 4-minute mile. Bannister was the first to break it, and John Landy, the Australian, was the second to break the 4-minute mile. Bannister had run the mile in 3 minutes, 58 seconds, and Landy ran it in 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds. About what you and I would run it, I'm pretty sure. The world watched eagerly. 35,000 people were in the stadium that day, and what was going to be decided was who is the fastest runner in the world. That was really what was going to be decided that day. It would later be known as the Miracle Mile. The gun sounded, the two men are running. There are other people that are also running this race, but the race really was between Roger Bannister and John Landy. And they are running pretty much step for step until about 90 yards from the finish. With about 90 yards to the finish line, John Landy, who had just a little bit of a lead, looked back over his shoulder to see where Roger Bannister was. And when he looked back over his shoulder, Bannister passed him on the right side. And we remembered Roger Bannister and his name because he was the first to break the 4-minute mile. He also won the Miracle Mile. John Landy's name is rarely ever known. You probably never heard that name in school, but you did hear Roger Bannister. And I use that story to close the sermon because I think it's important for us to realize that we cannot take our eyes off of Jesus even for a second to look back without being in jeopardy of not finishing the race well. So I would encourage every one of us to fix our eyes on Jesus as we run this race. Will you pray with me? Dear God, I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who stands cheering us on to finish well. Lord, I am thankful that he finished the race that was set before him, laying down his life on the cross, and then 3 days later rising forth in newness of life. And Lord, today I pray that we would remember the great cloud of witnesses that has gone before us and who serve with us. I pray, dear God, that we would not turn to the left or to the right, but that we would keep our eyes on Jesus and be steadfast as we endure and run this race. Lord, this morning I pray that whatever decisions we need to make to finish well, we would make that decision today, and that our whole life would be proclaiming your Son as our Savior and King. It's in his name I pray. Amen.
I invite you guys to stand and sing one more with us this morning. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. One more time. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Thank you for a message of encouragement, John, and good to be with you guys this morning, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and Joe will be back here with you guys next week. Bye.